Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhare Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhare Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanacharya Yamunatira Vanacharya Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhare
Gopi Jana Vallabha
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhare
Gopi Jana Vallabha
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanacharya Yamunatira Vanacharya Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada.
Chandravad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Status Systematis Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Svandaracharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Shri Radha Radhanath Ki. Shri Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki. Sankirtan Yagya Ki. Go Premanande. All glories to their Samo devotees. All glories to their Samo devotees. All glories to their Samo devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 12. Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. Text 40. Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishi Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan Satre Gayat Prachetasam Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishi Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan Satre Gayat Prachetasam Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishi Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan Satre Gayat Prachetasam Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishi Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan Satre Gayat Prachetasam
Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishi Atodyam Vitudan Shloka Shatre Gayat Prashitasam
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan
Atodam Vitudam Shlokam
Sache Gayat Prachetasam
Satyayat Prachetasam
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Atodam Vitudam Shlokam
Atodam Vitudam Shlokam
Satre Gayat Prachetasam
Satyayat Prachetasam.
Ladies,
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Atodam Vitudam Shlokan
Atodam Vitudam Shlokam
Sadhikaya Prachetasam
Satyayat Prachetasam
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Atodam Vitudam Shlokam
Atodam Vitudam Shlokam
Satvigaya Prachetasam
Satyayat Prachetasam
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Mahimanam Vilokyasya
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Narado Bhagavan Rishi
Atodam Vitudam Shlokam
Atodam Vitudam Shlokan
Satvigaya Prachetasam
Sadhikaya Prachetasam
Mahimanam,
Mahimanam
glories, Vilokya, observing, Asya, of Dhruva Maharaj, Narada, the great sage Narada, Bhagavan, as exalted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishi, the saint, Atodhyam, the stringed instrument, Veena, Veena, okay. Stringed instrument, Veena.
String instrument Veena
Vitudan, playing on, Shlokan, verses, Satre, in the sacrificial arena, Agayat, chanted, Prachetasam, of the Prachetas. Translation. After observing the glories of Dhruva Maharaj, the great sage Narada, playing on his veena, went to the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas and very happily chanted the following 3 verses. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Narada was the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj. Certainly, he was very glad to see Dhruva's glories. As a father is very happy to see the son's advancement in every respect, so the spiritual master is very happy to observe the ascendancy of his disciple. Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishi Atodhyam Vitudam Shlokan Satre Gayat Prachetasam. After observing the glories of Dhruva Maharaj, the great sage Narada, playing his veena, went to the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas and very happily chanted the following 3 verses. Nama Om Vishnupada Krishna Prishna Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadishtarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha. Patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So, yes, continuing and coming to the concluding parts, of the story of Dhruva Maharaj. And it's a very nice point that Narada Muni, who's the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj, and of course so many prominent and great devotees, he felt, you could say, well, he felt very happy, at least we can put it that way. You could even say he felt transcendentally proud of his disciple. That my disciple, Dhruva, strictly on the basis of my instructions, combined with his dedication and sincerity and seriousness, look at what he's achieved. He's gone back to Godhead. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that if I could just get one devotee to go back to Godhead, I'd consider my whole mission a grand success. So who is going to be that devotee? Devotees. Anyway. But at least we must certainly try our best. Or better than our best. Actually, we don't even really know what our best is, because Krishna empowers the devotees. When the devotees really get into devotional service and just give their all, then Lord Krishna supplements their all. And suddenly they find they're doing more than they were even hoping they could do, or wishing they could do, or something like that. I think we may have mentioned not long ago, recently sometime, during one of the first really major book distribution marathon in America, the devotees, before, it was a week, I think it was either a weekend or a week-long marathon, just not long. And the devotees didn't exactly take vows, but there was some meeting in which some devotees expressed, well, I'd like to do X number of books. And the thing is that by the time the marathon finished, most, if not all, but so many of the devotees had already done a lot more than they had said they would like to do. When they said what they'd like to do, they were, of course, being a little adventurous, and that I will do a certain number of books, more than what I've done in the past ever. And I remember the devotee who came first, his name was Sarvabhauma, and in one of the days, he distributed 136 Srimad Bhagavatams on the street to just people who are walking along the street. You know, they're not these really big Bhagavatams like what we have now. First, Well, you know what the first canto is like now. One volume. At that time, the first canto, just to give an idea, first canto was 3 volumes. So they're smaller. But, still, same format. And so they're big books. And he did 136 in one of the days. And he had, I forget the exact details, but he had said something like he would like, just dreaming, thinking big. He'd like to do 50. And if he did 50, he'd consider it just be, wow, look at that. So by mercy, well, of course, it's only by mercy that we can do anything, really. It's only by mercy that we can breathe. What to speak of, you could say, achieve certain goals in our practical services. But the point is, here right now in this regard, is that it's not really up to us. I mean, it's up to us. The explanation given in the Damodar Leela, the 2 fingers, you know about that? 2 fingers. Sridhar Swami, the great original Bhagavatam Vaishnav commentator, says the first finger represents the effort of the devotee. And the second finger represents the mercy of the Lord. If you look at your fingers, look at my fingers anyway, you see, this is my effort finger, and this is my Krishna's mercy finger. And you see which is bigger? Is it the same for you? Just a little bit. Well, it is, yeah. Well, mine, it's more pronounced than average. But I think it basically applies to all of us. I mean, your middle finger must be the biggest finger. So, yes, like that. And Narada Muni is the spiritual master, and he is such a great devotee. He's just absolutely one of the very greatest. And he knows these things very well. And he's seen the extreme success of his disciple Dhruva Maharaj on the basis of his instruction, Narada's instruction, to chant the mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he knows that this happened not simply by, our effort alone, although our effort is an essential factor in the sort of the equation of how things work out. But the ultimate factor is, look, Krishna's mercy. So, this disciple of mine, he did just perfectly amazing, just completely amazing. And it's only by the mercy of the Lord. Well, it's by the mercy of the Lord, but certainly a part of the whole thing was that my disciple, on the basis of my instruction, he really, really, really tried his best and tried hard, very sincerely, and just with the utmost of his strength, whatever he had at his command. And therefore he was successful. So practically, you could almost say uniquely successful. And so he was very happy. Narada Muni is very happy indeed.
Нарада Муни очень
So this is there. And we all should try to make our spiritual masters happy. Different of us have different spiritual masters. That's nice. Variety, what do they say? Variety is the spice of life, or something like that. It just makes things more interesting if there's variety. So it's great. It's really great to see the devotees becoming successful, and the spiritual master feels extremely pleased. Sometimes, I know some devotees have in their minds the idea that the spiritual master is like a strict disciplinarian. Some devotees, like, even with Srila Prabhupada had such an imposing presence that for us little new boys who hardly knew what was up and what was down in Krishna consciousness, when we're in Srila Prabhupada's presence, I remember the first time, the only time I was alone in Srila Prabhupada's presence, I was just really like sitting to attention, you could say. Like, wow, I'm with Srila Prabhupada. Krishna, got to watch out. So that's there. Of course, spiritual master, it's a complete type of relationship. It's not just disciplinarian only. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati at the Chaitanya Mat, which was his headquarters in Mayapur, he would give class regularly, and sometimes devotees, his disciples, someone would, can you believe it, fall asleep. It never happened to you, did it? But it would happen occasionally. And he occasionally would tell one of the other disciples, or maybe, a couple of them, to pick, if the devotee was sort of like chronically falling asleep. I remember once in my the first weeks of living in the temple in London, one devotee, in those days we didn't have deity greeting, and Guru Puja only started, if I remember correctly, was definitely in 1974. We're talking now about 1973. So we would just chant japa and then have class. So this one devotee, sitting right at the back, fell asleep in the last so many minutes of chanting japa. And the class began and everyone just ignored him. And suddenly, 10 minutes into the class, the devotee is giving the class and it's all going on. And the devotee is sitting there completely out for the count. Suddenly the devotee woke up and jumped up to his feet and chanted, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then it's class. It's class time. There are many interesting stories about devotees falling asleep. What to speak of how many devotees died in car accidents. So, right. So, when the spiritual master, the relationship it's a very complete type of transcendental relationship. It's not just a matter of being a disciplinarian, although the discipline is extremely important. After all, the word disciple is connected. It's one of the sort of forms of the term discipline, but actually the relationship is very multifaceted, you could say, and very personal. And there is appreciation, there is affection, along with the disciplinary side of things. So here, Narada Muni, he preached to Dhruva 6 months before, more or less, something like that. And Dhruva, of course, 5-year-old child, and 5-year-old children, normally, they cannot really comprehend discipline in constructive ways. It's like if someone tries to get on their case, they'll more often than not take it as sort of aggression against them. So he was just very nice. He was very nice. And he didn't chastise Dhruva. It was like, he was very fatherly, you could say. I mean, in a very pleasant sense of the term. And now he sees that Dhruva has become, Prabhupada, it's interesting, Prabhupada says, the spiritual master is very happy to observe the ascendancy of his disciple. Ascendancy is not one of your sort of just typical everyday words in the English language, like hello, goodbye, chant, common words. It's it's not a high level, super subtle word, but a little unusual. Ascendancy basically means like superiority, coming to a superior position, higher, but also like superior, that sort of sense. Yeah. So Dhruva's come to a superior position and gone back to Godhead. Yeah. Now, of course, this is all happening now, years later. But so he's very happy to see that Dhruva's come to a very high position, like a superior position in devotional service. So we all, or generally, or at least at some point in time, every serious devotee accepts a spiritual master and really tries to work on developing the spiritual relationship with the spiritual master. And we all should really have in mind that I want to please my spiritual master. Just not long ago, we read the verse where Srila Prabhupada, where Dhruva Maharaj, he gets onto the Vaikuntha airplane, but there's a number of Vaikuntha airplanes, and he sees his mother is coming out. And she gets onto another Vaikuntha airplane, and she also goes back to Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada makes the point that, in a certain sense, Dhruva Maharaj is the disciple of his mother. Not in the same sense that Dhruva Maharaj is the disciple of Narada, but that's there. The element of discipleship is there because Suniti was the very first one to give him any type of instruction, Krishna conscious instruction. And it was very brief. It's not like they then worked together for some years and she was instructing him and he was following the instructions. It was just a few words, one time, that he asked, how am I going to get such a kingdom bigger than my grandfather's even? And she said, well, I think you'll have to ask God. And he said, okay, where is he? I'll ask him. And she said, well, I've heard that when people want to find God, they usually go to the forest. And off he went, just like that, into the forest. And we even mentioned the other day, it's interesting, she didn't try to stop him. And that's an interesting mother with a 5-year-old child. And that was it. That was it. That was the extent, really, of her functioning as any sort of spiritual master with him. And so it was not the same. She was not the same sort of spiritual master as Narada Muni became in due course with Dhruva. It was just a few words. And maybe it took a minute, maybe it took a matter of seconds, something like that, and that was it. That was pretty much the end of her functioning as a spiritual master. But still, she functioned in a very important way as a spiritual master. So Srila Prabhupada says there that sort of acknowledging her lack of qualification or real capability spiritually, but her disciple, Dhruva Maharaj, he became extremely qualified enough to go back to Godhead. So Prabhupada says there, it's really amazing, his humility, and that he says that he is, elderly and sort of limited in certain respects. But he hopes that one of his disciples, like in this case Dhruva, was able to take his spiritual master, his mother, back to Godhead. So Prabhupada says he hopes that one of his disciples will become like Dhruva, such a disciple, and then take him, Prabhupada, back to Godhead. Anyway. And of course, Prabhupada essentially was always back at Godhead. It's not exactly that he really had to go and somehow get there. But anyway, he said like that. So Narada Muni is very happy and satisfied like this, very pleased. As a father is very happy to see the sons or daughters' advancement in every respect. So the spiritual master is very happy also. Yeah, so it's very nice. It's really very nice. And we, as aspiring devotees, sort of want to be devotees, we should know that and bear it in mind that actually I must really try and do like that. Please my spiritual master. By, first of all, becoming a proper devotee, becoming really a real devotee, fixed in Krishna consciousness and chanting and just doing everything very nicely, and also rendering meaningful service. Yeah, just like the other day, a couple of days ago, Mother Satyarani, I had some of her maha that she cooked, some morning halava, and I thought, and it was brilliant. Did you get my message? excuse me, in my messages. But anyway, I just thought, wow, this is really good. This is just really nice. Not something thrown together, just on automatic pilot, but something really done nicely. And I thought this must be pleasing to his spiritual master. So we really need to work like that on our service. Our service is our service. On one hand, it keeps us out of mischief. It keeps us engaged. On the other hand, it's an opportunity to please. So all of us, if we work on our regular service and really, you could say, try to perfect it or just keep improving it and really bringing it to a really nice standard, then if we really endeavor like that, we'll be able to please our spiritual master, just like Dhruva Maharaj has pleased Narada. And you may have noted, well, I'm sure you did, at the end of the verse itself, it says that, well, it's Maitreya speaking, that Narada, having observed this and felt very happy, then he left to go to the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas. And there's some more of his disciples. And as he went, he very happily chanted the following 3 verses, which we're going to read over the following 3 or so days. And so, I don't want to do a spoiler. I mean, it wouldn't be, but I happened to glance through them just half an hour ago or a while ago. And they're just verses in which Narada glorifies Dhruva Maharaj, glorifies his disciple. And it's one thing to please the spiritual master. It's another thing if the spiritual master tells others, expresses, like publicly, how pleased he is. So this is success in life for the devotees. This is really success in life. Sometimes devotees ask, how can we know if our devotional service is pleasing, or sometimes even is it being accepted or appreciated by, the Lord or the spiritual master? Well, you must know, if your spiritual master starts talking very happily about some service you did, then you know that's good. That's just extremely good for you to be appreciated by the spiritual master. Another, just on a completely different subject, seeing it's, just about one of the shortest purports in the Bhagavatam. Interesting little point. In the second line of the Sanskrit, Narado Bhagavan Rishi. Occasionally, Narada is addressed as Bhagavan, and this is one of those occasions. There are others, I don't actually know how many, but not many, but there are others. Bhagavan, of course, is sort of the classic term for expressing, particularly for expressing that a particular incarnation or expansion form of the Lord is the Lord, is actually a form of the Lord and not just one of the ordinary living beings. Bhagavan, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that, it's not exactly the same, but there's similarity there. That as in English, we use the term God, and it means God. But in Sanskrit, the equivalent term is not Krishna, because Krishna is the name, but like the position, the Sanskrit equivalent of God is Bhagavan, basically. Can be taken like that. The possessor of all opulences in full. So it's, in other words, Bhagavan is more like a title than a name. It can be seen like that. Whereas Krishna is very specifically a name, And therefore we find in Bhagavad Gita, every time Lord Krishna begins speaking, on a number of occasions, Arjuna says something and Krishna begins speaking again. And when Krishna begins speaking again, it never says Shri Krishna Uvacha. It's not there at all, doesn't exist in Bhagavad Gita. But rather every single time it says Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Yeah, not Sri Krishna Uvacha. Could say Sri Krishna, what would be wrong? Nothing at all. But Bhagavan is very much that this is God is speaking here. Supreme Personality of Godhead is speaking here. So why Narado Bhagavan Rishi? Why Narada? Because he is a jiva, like us. He is. And if you're familiar with the Bhagavatam, you would know that he had been a conditioned soul. Actually, Bhagavatam describes two of his previous lifetimes. One as a demigod. That's what I think it's the 8th canto. He was a demigod singer, singer. And he got cursed to become a Sudra. So then he was born as the son of the maidservant. And then he became Narada Muni in the next lifetime, or sort of got the eternal position of Narada Muni. So he's, you could say, one of us. Why is he now Bhagavan? And just a matter of days ago, I would say last week, I was finishing making notes on the last chapter of the 4th canto for Bhakti Vaibhava. And Srila Prabhupada gave a really interesting explanation of why Narada and people, sometimes others, are also called Bhagavan, who are not Vishnu Tattva at all. They're living entities like us. Prabhupada, the way Prabhupada puts it, is that someone like Narada, these great, great devotees, Krishna becomes their, you can say, like their property. If they tell Krishna or ask Krishna, do this please, he does it. He does it. Like, in a very humble way, he takes that request and takes it like an instruction. So in that sense, the Lord becomes the property of the advanced devotee. And the Lord, as Bhagavan, of course, possesses all opulences. So when you possess the Lord, you become the possessor of all opulences. You get the idea? I thought it was very nice. It's not just because, they're great, they're wonderful, they're just so wonderful. But they can be seen as actually being Bhagavan because they possess, he who possesses all opulence. All those opulences are at their disposal completely. So like that, Narado Bhagavan Rishi, because it's, here, the special position of Narada, that he managed to transform Dhruva from this little boy into this just amazing, perfect devotee. What does that say about Narada Muni? It says he's really special. And it's only because he has these potencies of the Lord. Therefore, he was able to transform Dhruva, and therefore it's appropriate to address him, refer to him as Bhagavan. It's not just like, I remember, with respect, maybe I shouldn't even say it, but, Nelson Mandela, when he got out of jail, not long after he came here, visited here, and he spent a few hours here at the temple. Then I think either later the same day, or maybe the next day, he went and met with some gathering of Hindus headed by the now late head of the Hindu Mahasabha. What was his name? Was his name Gaja? Anyway, whoever he was. And this gentleman, head of the Hindu Mahasabha, so they're having some program for him. And he said, yes, Mr. Mandela, he's so wonderful and great and just fantastic. It's sure, really. And he said, he's just like Lord Ram. And I read that and I thought, you don't understand properly. So this is not just some sort of idol or just flattery or, something getting carried away like that. Narado Bhagavan Rishi. But it's true. To have done what he did with Dhruva, nobody else could do it. It's only because he's empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the powers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or certain powers, that he was able to do it. And therefore it's this practically unique situation. And for any of you, let me just close by saying, for any of you who are studying Sanskrit, is it still going on, the Sanskrit course? It was. But maybe then you don't understand, but if you look in the word for word, you'll see that Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narada, or actually Naradaha. Yeah, but in the verse, it's Narado. Do you realize what's happened? Little Sanskrit lesson. So the actual word in the nominative case, do you understand what's the nominative as opposed to the accusative? It means when the person or whatever is the subject. So Narada is the subject. It's not like he is the object, but he is the subject. Narada did something. So, when in the nominative, when you've got Narad aha, the Visarga aha, But the next word begins ba, B-H-A, ba. Then aha changes to O.
После в стихе превращается в
Yes.
О.
There you go. You learned some Sanskrit. Narado Bhagavan. Otherwise, it could have been Naradaha Bhagavan Rishi.
Здесь могло быть Нарадаха
Hare
Бхагаван.
Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Any comments, questions? Surabdananda Prabhu, words of wisdom.
Question mark. So it's clear that pleasure of the spiritual master is essential for us to advance. We must endeavor to please the spiritual master. But our activities and the results of our activities, by us communicating into the spiritual master, could seem sort of advertising oneself. It could come out like that.
Yes.
Like once I was told by my spiritual master, do your service in such a way that you don't need to tell me about it. He got that from Tamal Krishna Maharaj.
Okay.
So, it's a nice principle, but sometimes you may wonder, does he know, doesn't know, is he going to be pleased without knowing? So, how can we develop the faith that that connection is there, whether I broadcast it or inform, even, of course, sometimes informing him may not be an advertisement, it may be just, humbly presenting for your pleasure type of thing.
And sometimes he may need to know.
Maybe need to know. So how do you know where to if you're going too much with, here I am, I'm the person, or just being, happy in goodness.
Well, Srila Prabhupada, I was told, was once asked, how do you know what your disciples are doing? And Prabhupada answered, the postman tells me. In other words, I would say, as a sort of a purport, I don't think we need to worry if the spiritual master knows or not. But I would say that by, Krishna and the spiritual master, they're a team in a certain sense. There's Chaitya Guru and the personal spiritual master. So I would say that by arrangement, and it could be it could be like one of the devotees tells your spiritual master, not you telling, but like maybe the temple president tells. I know that, I don't know how many, but I do know a few temple presidents who make regular reports to the different spiritual masters of the devotees serving under their supervision. That's there. But I would say that, to advertise oneself, of course, is just inappropriate. But I think we would need to have faith that if he should know, he'll be informed directly or indirectly. Something like that. What would you say?
I was thinking similar. It's especially relevant when the spiritual master's disappeared. You can't now send emails or give him a call, I've done this, I've done that. So you have to have faith in that transcendental medium that Krishna is in your heart and he inspires the spiritual master from within also.
Right. Oh yes. Because he really does. definitely. Yes, so I think that's the bottom line. But while the spiritual master is present,
Пока духовный учитель находится, физическое
one, anyway, one should basically have that faith, and because Krishna is there and Krishna makes sure that the right things happen and the wrong things don't happen.
Кришна делает
So,
что происходит, то, что должно произойти.
yeah, I don't think it needs to be a subject for anxiety, a cause for anxiety or real concern. But if, sometimes it's suggested that one can ask the spiritual master, what service would you like me to do? That sort of idea. What might you like me to focus on? So then, if he actually does, then I would say there are grounds for making reports from time to time. Yeah.
Духовный учитель дает какое-то конкретное задание, то, конечно, это является почвой для того, чтобы время от времени посылать ему отчеты об этой деятельности.
But otherwise, better just to carry on. Yeah, and not go out of your way
В большинстве случаев лучше
To-
продолжать делать это.
to make reports.
I was also thinking like how Narada is so proud of his disciples. Prabhupada was like that too about his disciples, and he would often have the opportunity to glorify his disciples to others. He was very transcendently proud.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know the story, I'm sure you do, with Malati Devi Dasi in Mayapur. Gee, you know that story. Which one? Anyway, a small group of Prabhupada's godbrothers were going to come and visit him in Mayapur right in the beginning. Mayapur is just hardly developed at all. And they're going to come and have lunch and meet with Prabhupada. So Prabhupada so Malati Devi Dasi was his cook, and she would then serve him what she had cooked. So he told her that these devotees are coming, so please. So anyway, so there you go. And she thought it would be inappropriate for herself as a lady to serve they're sannyasis, and they're, you could say very traditional Indian type sannyasis, definitely somewhat different to what we're used to. So she thought it wouldn't be appropriate even to cook for them, let alone serve them. So she tried to get someone else one of the men, but there was just nobody, there were hardly any devotees around. And she ended up having to cook. And then she ended up having to serve. So as I recall, she explained this to us. As I recall, she did what our ISKCON ladies never do. She pulled her sari over, not onto we have a couple here, over the face, down, like the older ladies, the older Bridgebusy ladies do that. And you wonder how they can see, Oh yeah, it's extremely common. I mean, it's pretty common. So there she was, serving and trying to be as discreet as possible, or even more discreet than possible. And suddenly in the middle of it all, Srila Prabhupada just says she's trying to serve them something very, unobtrusively. Prabhupada said, "This is my disciple, Malati Devi Dasi." Announcement. And Prabhupada said, she would slit her throat for me, and I would slit my throat for her.
Она перережет себе горло,
Pretty,
а я
pretty amazing.
он за нее.
Of course, I won't tell the story, but when Bhakti Churu Maharaj made the mistake in the last, when they were in Rishikesh.
Chili.
Yeah, no, it didn't. Made a charchari sabji. It was like heavy with ghee and a lot of chili. But Prabhupada was ill. He had like some sort of flu or something of that sort. So Maharaj thought, can't use chili. So he just used a fraction of the chili that Prabhupada, because Prabhupada had shown him how to do it. And Prabhupada got on his case. Oh, Krishna. So everybody who came, people like Hindu people were coming and visiting Prabhupada during the course of the day. Everyone he told for 2 days. You know what this boy did? That's another kind of mercy. Hare Krishna, yes, you had your hand up.
Yes, I want to know, Drivaloka is a spiritual planet, so why did Dhruva Maharaj have to fly to the spiritual world?
I don't. As far as I know, he just went to Drivaloka.
Oh,
Yeah, with his mother. As far as I'm aware. Have I got it right?
I think the geography is transcendental. You're going to Durban, but you're actually going to Vaikuntha.
Yeah.
Didn't he serve for like 38,000 years as the king on Drivaloka, and then he
Would depart elsewhere.
Yes.
I'd have to check.
Kind of how
But there's something like that. Yeah.
Wasn't he king for 38,000 years? The way he in the material world?
Wasn't that? Yeah, right.
That's what I'm.
He ruled. And Prabhupada, I read that also, Prabhupada. I mean, in the sense that Prabhupada says this is proof that it's Satya Yuga, that he ruled for 36,000 or whatever it is years on earth. Then he went. So now this is at that time, at the end. Yeah. And it's Vaikuntha. And whether, the fact that it's within this universe doesn't make any difference really to its Vaikuntha-ness. Every Vaikuntha planet is bigger, what to speak of this universe, bigger than the entire material creation. And that's a Vaikuntha planet. But it's within this one. And this is the smallest universe. Our Lord Brahma only has 4 heads. It's like, relatively speaking, the tiniest universe. But there's this Vaikuntha planet, which is bigger than the entire material creation. Haribol. Just say, Haribol. Anyone else? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, devotees, look. We have some Mahaprasadam. Before you go, please come and collect your Mahaprasadam. Come.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Good halava. Really? Haribol.
Thank you.
Haribol. Haribol. 4:30, right? Right. Hare Krishna. Krishna. Oi, oi. Okay, so Nash